All right, y'all. This lesson covers Chapter 1, Thinking Critically, Unit 1A, Living in the Media Age. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and you're going to watch as I take notes so that you'll have a video of my notes to refer to do your homework problems later, okay? So today we're going to be talking about logic. So I'm going to give you the definition of logic, and then, tell you what an argument is and several other things, okay? And that's all this chapter is going to deal with is our logic. So let me share the screen so we can start doing a few definitions. All right, so now you should see my writing pad. It says Chapter 1, Thinking Critically, and Unit 1A, Living in the Media Age. So here we go on some definitions. First definition is logic. In logic is the study of the methods and principles of reasoning. Sort of like your ability to think things out and tell if they are true or not. You know what I'm saying? Do they make sense? So in logic, we talk about arguments. An argument uses a set of facts or assumptions. So if they're not facts, they're assumptions called premises. So later when they talk about a premises, you're talking about the set of facts or assumptions being made. What are they stating about this argument, okay? So an argument has its set of assumptions or premises. Usually the first thing that you talk about in an argument are your premises. They're setting up. And what are they setting up? They're setting up your conclusion. So these are to support a conclusion. So conclusions like what's the outcome? What happened because of these premises? What did they happen to make occur? So to be a good argument, you got to be true and you can't be false. And that's what we want to talk about next, a fallacy. A fallacy is a deceptive argument. Okay. An argument in which the conclusion is not well supported by the premises. So I make this facts or assumptions about something. So it's deceptive though if my conclusion or my outcome is not supported by these premises. It's like a flaw in reasoning. Okay, a flaw in reasoning. So we're going to look at the different types of fallacy structures. Okay, these are the types of fallacies that lead to the bad arguments or the deceptive arguments, ones that they cannot support for me, okay? So the first one is appeal to popularity. This would be like many people believe P is true. Therefore, P is true. So a whole lot of people think something's good. So in the end, we're saying, well, it's not true, so that should be true. That should be true. Many people believe P is true, therefore P is true. Got carried away on my writing there, y'all. So let me show y'all an example of something that would be an appeal to popularity. Ford makes the best pickup trucks in the world. More people drive Ford pickups than any other light truck. Okay, so the premise, more people drive Ford pickups than any other light truck. See, sometimes they're out of order, right? So this one is telling me more people drive Ford pickups than any other light truck. The conclusion is Ford makes the best pickups in the world. It suffers from appeal to popularity or appeal to the majority. Since more people drive Fords, they're saying Ford makes the best. Not necessarily, okay? Although large numbers believe or act some way is used inappropriately as evidence that the belief or action is correct. So although more people like it, it don't mean that it is the best pickup trucks, okay? Especially in the whole world. All right, so let me turn this over so we can get our second fallacy. Second fallacy structure is what we call false cause. So false cause, A came before B. A caused B. So you're saying just because something came before the other, that first thing caused that other. So let's look at an example of a false cause. I placed a quartz crystal on my forehead, and in 5 minutes my headache was gone. The crystal made my headache go away. So the premise would be, I placed this quartz crystal on my forehead, right? Premise, in 5 minutes, my headache was gone. So you're coming out and saying this whole sentence as your premise. The conclusion was the crystal made your headache go away. Well, that can suffer from false cause because one event came before another is incorrectly taken as evidence that the first event caused the second event. Just because you put a quartz crystal on your head and your headache was gone, does that actually mean that the crystal made your headache leave? Okay? So A came before B, A caused B is definitely a fallacy due to the false cause. Third, we got appeal to ignorance. So that would be IG, ignorance. Appeal to ignorance. There is no proof that P is true. Therefore, P is false. So, just because there's no proof that something is true does not necessarily mean that it's false or the opposite. Okay, so we call this the appeal to ignorance, where you have no proof that P is true and therefore you think it's false. Okay, That's not always true. So we will call that the appeal to ignorance. And an example of that, scientists have not found any concrete evidence of aliens visiting Earth. Therefore, anyone who claims to have seen a UFO must be hallucinating. So the premise would be, where is it? There's no evidence of the aliens visiting Earth. The conclusion, where is it? Anyone who claims to have seen a UFO must be hallucinating, which means aliens have not visited Earth would be our conclusion. So let's see. Just because there's no proof aliens have visited Earth, does that mean that they have not 100% visited Earth? You see the fallacy in that? They could have visited Earth, but left no proof of that visit. So a lack of proof of alien visit does not mean that visits have not occurred. This is appeal of ignorance because it uses ignorance or lack of knowledge. Remember, ignorance is the lack of knowledge about the truth of a proposition to conclude the opposite. So just because we didn't have proof didn't mean that they didn't come. All right, number 4, hasty generalization. So A and B are linked one or a few times. So I got two things that are linked together, it can be one or a few times. Therefore, A causes B or vice versa. Okay, so we're saying two things are linked a few ways or once, and now we're saying that one or the other causes the other to happen. Okay, hasty generalization. Let's look at that. Two cases of childhood leukemia have occurred along the street where the high voltage power lines run. So the power lines must be the cause of these illnesses. So the premise of the argument is the two cases of leukemia, but are two cases enough to establish a pattern, let alone to conclude that the power lines caused the illnesses, right? So just because two childhood kids had leukemia, does that mean that the power lines caused that? So that's hasty generalization. You're saying, well, it happened to two people, so it must be causing it, and it can cause those illnesses, okay? So in which a conclusion is drawn from an inadequate number of cases or cases have not been sufficiently analyzed. Okay, people? All right, y'all, what's this? Number 5, limited choice. So you've seen how all these fallacies can cause you to have doubts in your logical thinking? All right, so limited choice says P is false, therefore only Q can be true. So you're saying, hey, this P is false, therefore only this Q can be true. So you're limiting my choice. You're not giving me a or an and or anything, okay? So let's look at a limited choice. You don't support the president, so you are not a patriotic American. So the premise, you don't support the president. The conclusion, you are not a patriotic American. It's limited choice because you're telling me that if I don't support the president, I'm not a patriot. But can I not be a patriot and not support the current president? So see, limited choice or false dilemma, because it artificially precludes choices that ought to be considered. You didn't even give me a choice to be a patriot and not support that president, okay? So you're giving me a limited choice of options. All right, what's that? Number 6 is appeal to emotion. Your emotions are your feelings, right? So P is associated with a positive emotional response. Therefore, P is true. Right? Oh, that made me so happy. So it's got to be right. You know what I mean? Let's go. Appeal to emotion. In ads for Michelin tires, right? The Michelin tire man. A picture of a baby is shown with the words, because so much is riding on your tires. So the premise is you love your baby, right? Because we're showing you a picture of your baby. And then we're saying because so much is riding on your tires. To conclusion, you should buy Michelin tires because you love your baby. So the advertisers hope that you love, or the love you feel for a baby will make you want to buy their tires because they're the safest tires, right? This attempt to evoke an emotional response, they're appealing to your love of that baby as a tool of persuasion, represents the fallacy of appeal to emotion, right? They're not saying that you have an option. We're just appealing to how you feel about that baby. All right, y'all. So next would be 7. Personal attack. And I bet a lot of us have seen this personal attack. I have a problem with the person or group claiming P. And y'all remember, they just use the letters to represent events, okay? And instead of writing out these special events, we're just saying that this is event P. So we got a group of people claiming this P, therefore. So therefore, the conclusion, P is not true. Right? I have a problem with the person or group claiming P, therefore it's not true. So just because you don't like someone claiming something is good or true, does that necessarily mean that it's not true? Right? They can hate the things you hate, but they could also be liking the things that you see as true also. So just because someone you don't like likes something does not mean that it's not true, okay? So let's look at our personal attack. All right, so Gwen, you should stop drinking because it's hurting your grades, endangering people when you drink and drive, and destroying your relationship with your family. Merle, I've seen you drink a few too many on occasion yourself. So that's Merle yelking back at Gwen, sort of attacking her on the back. Merle has resorted to attacking Gwen personally rather than arguing logically, right? He didn't say, well, I see your point. I really do need to slow down on the drinking because I see what you mean. No, he attacked him and said, well, I've seen you drink too many on occasion. So we call that a personal attack. You're coming back and attacking that person. All right, what's next? 8. Circular reasoning. So this is sort of like it never has a conclusion. It's like it repeats itself. It's circular. It keeps spinning in a circle. and it goes nowhere. So P is true. P is restated in different words. It's like the argument states the conclusion. So if something's true, but then you're saying it in a different way, hey, that thing is true again. So you're not going nowhere with this logic. You're just spinning me in a circle, okay? Watch this. Example of circular reasoning. Society has an obligation to provide health insurance because health care is a right of citizenship. So right here you're saying, hey, society should provide health care. And here the same thing, right? You're saying health care is a right of citizenship, so everybody should get health care. So look, the argument states the conclusion society has an obligation to provide health insurance before the premise healthcare is a human right, but if you read carefully, you'll recognize that the premise and the conclusion both say essentially the same thing, as social obligations are generally based on definitions of accepted rights. So it suffers from circular reasoning. You're not telling me anything new. Everybody has a right to health care. Society has an obligation to provide health insurance. Is that not saying the same thing, right? All right, y'all, look at this. We're already on number 9, which is an IX in Roman numerals. Diversion. And diversion is often called the red herring fallacy. So, P is related to Q. And I have an argument concerning Q. Therefore, P is true. Okay, so you're saying these two arguments are related. And you have an argument concerning Q. So I have an argument that's valid related to Q. So therefore, automatically, since P is related to the Q, P is true. No, P can be false and you still have a valid argument with Q. Although P and Q are related, that does not mean that you have both of these as valid. Okay, so let's look at our red herring or diversion. I'm trying to divert it, right? Okay, watch this. We should not continue to fund cloning research because there are so many ethical issues involved. Decisions are based on ethics, and we cannot afford to have too many ethical loose ends. So you're relating them, but then you're saying it should be based on ethics, and we cannot afford to have too many ethical loose ends. So it begins with the conclusion, we should not continue to fund the cloning research, right? That's what we want to end up as our goal. However, the discussion is all about ethics. So it's talking about ethics and not about the research actually. We're trying to divert you off of cloning research by talking about the ethics about cloning research, right? We're not proving the side of the point that needs to be the side of the point. We're diverting you off of it, okay? Whew, y'all, number 10. There's quite a few of these fallacy structures, and sometimes you can find articles online where they list up to 20 or 30 fallacy structures, okay? All right, so this one's called the straw man. Cool name, right? So I have an argument concerning a distorted version of P. Therefore, I hope you are fooled into concluding, I'm trying to fool you now, into concluding I have an argument concerning the real version of P. So, I'm telling you all this stuff about this argument, and I'm really distorting it, you know, and you're into it, you know, I have a valid argument about all this stuff about this distorted version of something. So now, I hope you're fooled into concluding that I have an argument concerning the real version of P. So if I say it jokingly, I want you to take it seriously in the real world on that, okay? So, let's look at straw man. Suppose that the mayor of a large city proposes decriminalizing drug possession in order to reduce overcrowding in jails and save money on enforcement. His challenger in the upcoming election says, hey, the mayor doesn't think there's anything wrong with drug use, but I do. Now, just because this mayor proposed up here that decriminalizing drug possession in order to reduce overcrowding in jails and save money, does that mean that he's actually for drug use? Right? He didn't say he didn't come out and say he's against drug use, or he didn't say he was for drug use. He just wanted to decriminalize drug possession, minor drug possession where people are in jail and they're getting overcrowded. But the other mayor says, you know, so he's like saying, talking about this distorted version. Hey, he likes to let drug criminals out for the overcrowding. So therefore, he likes drug use. No, that's not what he's saying, right? He did not say that drug use is acceptable. His proposal for decriminalization is designed to solve another problem, overcrowding of jails. And lets harder criminals get in jail and lets out the lesser offensive criminals. And tells us nothing about his general views on drug use. The speaker has distorted the mayor's views. Any argument based on a distortion of someone's words or beliefs is called a straw man. Okay, y'all, so that was all of my fallacies. So now we're going to look at evaluating media information. Okay, so 5 steps to evaluating media information. First one, consider the source. What's that? S-O-U-R-C-E. Consider the source. Is the source of the information clear? Does the source have credibility on that issue? Are they a valid source? Second, check the date. Right? Check the date. Can you determine when it was written? Is it still relevant? Or is it outdated? Right? If I want something from the 1800s when I'm living in the I'm in the 2000s now, right? So I don't want something from the 1800s. Validate accuracy. And see, all these methods are going to help us find those fallacies, right? Validate the accuracy. Can you validate the information from other sources? Do you have good reason to believe it's accurate? Is it someone telling you this that's an expert in the field? Does it contain anything that makes you suspicious? You know, is it far-fetched? All right, y'all, number 4. Watch for hidden agendas. A hidden agenda means is the information presented fairly and objectively, or is it manipulated to serve some particular or hidden agenda? Do you have an ulterior motive for me doing this, right? A different outcome than I'm thinking. All right, and 5, don't miss the big picture. So don't miss the big picture. Even if a piece of media information passes all the above tests, step back and consider whether it makes sense. For example, does it conflict with other things you think are true? How can you resolve the conflict? If I believe in this, is it going to make this, what I know is true, be false? I got to see what's the big picture or the big outcome of their information. So y'all, basically that would be the lecture part of this done. And what I would do now is sort of give you an idea of what the homework's going to look like. So in MATLAB, when you go to your 1A work, you'll see they'll give you the following example of a logical fallacy, and it's an appeal to popularity. And they want me to complete parts A and B down here. So A would be this. So let's see what they're giving me. Apple's iPhone outsells all other smartphones, so it must be the best smartphone on the market. So they're asking me, what's the premise? What's happening to give me my conclusion? And their premise is Apple's iPhone outsells all other smartphones, right? They're telling me since it outsells all other smartphones, my conclusion is it must be the best smartphone on the market. Well, here they go. What's the conclusion? It's the best smartphone on the market. Because it outsells all other phones does not necessarily mean it's the best phone on the market. That's why this is an appeal to popularity. More people like it, so it's the best. So now B down here would be, briefly explain how appeal to popularity occurs in the argument. Choose the correct answer below. So here was my answer. The fact that many people buy the iPhone does not necessarily mean it is the best smartphone on the market. And that's what I was trying to say up here when I was telling you about these choices, right? All right, y'all, another example that you might see. Consider the following example of a fallacy and complete A through C. It's a false cause. I became sick just hours after eating at Burger Hut, so its food must have made me sick. So the premise is I became sick just hours after eating at Burger Hut. The conclusion is the food from Burger Hut made you sick. See, you see the fallacy in that, right? The argument doesn't prove that Burger Hut food was the cause of the sickness. Now you see this, the conclusion is stated before the premise. That's false. The premise was in the right order. The argument rejects the possibility of alternative explanations. It ain't rejecting those possibilities. It's just giving you this one conclusion. There's not enough evidence to support the conclusion. So you see how this is it? The argument doesn't prove that Burger Hut food was the cause of the sickness. So down here, which is another example. So on this, you could read all those, but I went with B because I brought my lucky hat with me to take my driving test, and then I passed the test. So the hat caused me to pass my driving test. You can see the fallacy on that. You can wear any lucky hat to the driving test. Does that mean it's making you pass that driving test? No, 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 no. So y'all see how these problems are set up? Y'all want me to Y'all got about, let's see, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let me do one of them like the last one, because I sort of told you how those ones were going to go. So watch this. In the following argument, identify the premise and conclusion. Explain why the argument is deceptive, and if possible, identify the type of fallacy. My baby was vaccinated and later developed autism, which is why I believe that vaccines cause autism. So the premise is, well, my baby was vaccinated and later developed this autism. The conclusion was, I believe that vaccines cause autism. Is that enough proof that this vaccine caused that autism? A lot of times autism is genetic and might not be caused from a vaccination and might not have never been detected in the prior past, right? So let's explain why it's deceptive. I chose the argument is deceptive because it attempts to create a link between vaccines and autism, right? She says, I did a vaccine, I got autism. Can we say there's a link? Do we know there's full support for that conclusion? No, we do not. So what type of fallacy does it represent? And it is a false cause. Just because this happened, she's saying this happens. No, that is a false cause. Okay? All right, then this one will be like the very last one, and then I'm going to cut the video and let y'all have at it, okay? Now, when we have support lab from 7:25 to 8:15, that is when I will actually be live for y'all to ask questions about anything on your homework, okay? We just can't do that during the lecture hour because I don't have technology to do live lectures in school. That's why I'm making these pre-recorded lectures for y'all until we get technology at the school, okay? But I will still have you on Zoom in labs because I can pull you up and go to the lab with you, okay? So the same argument, we're going to identify the premise and conclusion, explain why it's deceptive, and identify the type of fallacy. Everyone loves Shakespeare because his plays have been read for so many centuries. So now they're in the back order, right? They're saying you love Shakespeare because they've been read for so many centuries. So the premise is actually his plays have been read for so many centuries. The conclusion would be everyone loves Shakespeare. Okay, it's deceptive. Now I went down here with D on this one for deception because I said it's deceptive because it assumes that many people reading Shakespeare's plays is evidence that those people actually like Shakespeare. Just because he's got the best-selling book does not mean they like Shakespeare, right? They just might want to read his books, but that does not mean they like it. They just might be nosy and want to know something about something, right? So we're going with appeal to popularity. That's what I had accidentally scratched on the last one, but I meant for this one. I had my numbers out of order. It's an appeal to popularity. A lot of people read it, so he's the best. Everyone loves him. He's number one, but that is not always true. So y'all, here's the thing. I'm going to stop sharing this and go back live. Main thing you got to do this week, the first thing, do your homework, 1A. Also, you need to get online in Blackboard and do the course agreement quiz on the Start Here page. The first page you get to when you log into my course, you'll see the syllabus, course schedule, course agreement quiz. Do that first. Then to find your homework, link on the side says student MathLab links. Click on that student links, and the first thing you should see is my lab student assignments. And then it'll have the grade book and other things. Also on the left side in Blackboard, you'll see links to my videos. I got videos for every section I'm going to try to put into that, okay? At the moment, we got PowerPoints in there from another instructor, but I'll be putting all my Zoom videos in there for y'all to also have, okay? So, got to do the course agreement quiz or you get dropped. That's a requirement. And then to find your homework, go through the My Lab student links, okay? And then you'll see everything I got listed in that shell right there for y'all to have extra help on. It'll have tutor links down there for you to go to the tutor lab and do like a Zoom meeting with them. But tomorrow, use the Zoom links that I have sent to go to the support lab that happens at 7:25. I will not be able to let you on into the Zoom meeting until around that time because I'll be doing lectures in the other part of the class that I'm making your videos for, okay? So I'm going to stop the video and y'all have good luck.